John Maxwell, welcome to Personal and Professional Best.
Great to be with you.
We train so many leaders in business around the world. And so relatively simple background turns into, because you started from the inside, turns into this unbelievable legacy.
It does.
When we looked at Horst Schulze's picture, you know, we both talked about he's got an 8th grade education and he changed the world.
He's amazing.
Picked out one idea. I've had a blessed life too, not certainly yours or Horst, my own, starting the inside out. My mission was, I always wanted to coach. I've been married 38 years. Lisa decided not to let me coach. She said, I don't want to be married to a coach. But I've been coaching my whole life. I just didn't think it was possible to do it in business. And of course it is. My mission is to leave other people, because that's what coaches do, better than I find them.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, so they're both inside out, said a little bit differently, but they, I think, get about to the same place. Do you create like goals every year personally, like family? And do you and the Maxwell organization create goals for the professional life that you have?
I do. First of all, my favorite week of the year is the last week of the year. And as soon as Christmas is over, I begin to get very excited because the next 7 days up to January 1, I don't travel. I spend them with my calendar, and I look at, I do an evaluation of the year. And I literally go day by day, literally hour by hour. And I have a legal pad. I have 4-color pen, and I just jot notes as I'm going through every day with observations and thoughts. And I spend probably about 3 days doing reflection and evaluation. And then I begin to project, how am I going to apply that to next year? And I do this every year, and it's just a life-changing exercise. I teach a lot of people how to do it, and it's just, to me, you know, you really can't reach out to the future until you have realistically touched the past. And I think that a lot of times we're always racing to something, and we haven't yet solidified the foundation we need that'll help us to get there. And so I use this last week every year, and it's in several areas. There's, you know, family stuff, and there's business stuff, there's personal growth stuff that I want. And one of the things I do is I note every time that Margaret and I had something fun that we did together. And then sometime during that week, we'll go out to eat, and I'll say, are you ready? And I'll have 3 or 4 pages, legal pages, and I'll say, do you remember when we did this? And you remember, oh my gosh, remember what happened to us when we're here? And we just have a phenomenal evening, reflecting on our year and laughing and sometimes crying, depends on what happened. But it's just experience. You know, we hear all the time, Pat, experience is the best teacher, but it's really not. It really isn't. If experience were the best teacher, as people get older, they get better. And I know a lot of people, they're getting older, but they're not getting better. You know what I'm saying? See, so experience is not the best teacher. If it were, then people, as they got older, would become wiser. But evaluating experience, that's the best teacher. The ability for me to look what I have done and pull out of it life-changing principles. And so when my children grew up, and my 5 grandchildren, I do this with them still today, is whenever we had an experience, which would be 2 or 3 times weekly of something, they knew after the experience I was going to ask them 2 questions. What did you learn, and what did you love? And we, after a few years, they would just, after the experience, okay, here, Dad, here's what I learned, here's what I love. And I did the same with my grandchildren. And what I was trying to do, Pat, is I was trying to teach them, again, to not just have an experience, but to have an experience that's unforgettable. Have an experience that has potential to change my thoughts and my actions in my life. So anyway, I every year evaluate. It's kind of like, before I go forward, though, I have to make sure I settle the past, and I'm comfortable with the past, And I've had during that evaluation many times where I come over on a certain date and I think, oh, it wasn't a good day. It wasn't a good day. And I've called people on the phone and say, you probably don't remember June 16th this year we were together. And, I think I got sharp with you. I need to ask you to forgive me. And it's just, when I go into January the 1st of whatever year, I'm ready. I'm not like catching up after the first week has already taken off on me. On January the 1st, I am taking off with my goals and with my vision and with the things that I'm now reaching forward to. But I think the miss is that so many times we are so anxious to reach forward that we really haven't studied and evaluated and reflected and thought on that foundation that we need to put under us in our past. Does that make sense?
It makes all the sense in the world. And I heard you're reviewing the game tape really from the year that was. Mm-hmm. You're also humble in that you're reflecting on it so that the experience that you had, you can learn. And the only way you can really get better is when you humble yourself to accept the fact that we'll never, any of us, always get everything done we want to get done exactly the way we want to get it done.
No, that's very true. And because with the recording, I turned the phone off. But all of a sudden, I thought of something. And when the phone comes on, I'm going, if you don't mind, I'm going to just take 3 or 4 minutes, because I think everybody that's watching us, I think in just a couple of minutes, I can give them some stuff that will really...
John, I think they're going to let you take the 3 or 4 minutes. I just have a hunch.
Please. Hey,
I don't even
pretty please. Yeah, okay. So this is an example of what we're talking about. You with me?
No, yeah.
So I have what I call year-end review questions. And the first question is, what made me proud? And now I review my year with all of these questions in front of me. Mm. So there, oh boy, on the 13th of January, there was something I was really proud of that day. Wow. And so what made me proud? Then what did I learn? And I write down in this reflection everything I learned that year. In fact, this is huge. I do a picture journal every year. And what I do is I take all the pictures on my iPhone and I pull out, not a lot, I'm going to guess 20 minimum, 30 max. And these pictures are lessons. They remind me of a lesson that I learned that year. And I put the picture with the lesson. Wow. So it's incredibly visual. In fact, I've done this with leaders before. I literally have said, hey, I'm just going to teach you how to review your year visually. And because visual is such a powerful, and I show them a picture and say, now let me tell you the context. Here's what I learned. So what did I learn? And who and how did I love? That's a huge question for me. Did I really value and care for people? Then question number 5 is about awareness. What held me back? Because every year I find something held me back. I'm 75 and I write all this leadership success. You would think, how old do you have to get before one year you say, nothing held me back? You know what I mean? I would just off and zoom in, and I've never had one of those years yet, but I'm hoping to have one of those years. But yeah, what held me back? And almost always what held me back is not someone else or something else. It was me.
It was me.
It was me. And I'll look and say, I held me back there. I didn't take that risk. Our regrets, they've done a lot of studies, Pat. Our regrets, basically, when we come to the end of our life, are not for things that we did wrong.
We didn't do.
It's for things we didn't do. And so what held me back? And then, what bottlenecked me the most? What came in and crowded me and I didn't get to move? So, there's a couple of major awareness. And then I ask a question, do I still love what I do? I ask myself that question every year.
Are you going to write a book about this?
I might.
Because it's profound in the way that people are living their lives, not really setting up the next chapter of their life for success. And this
I 100%.
It's a roadmap. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, I 100%. In fact, I am writing a book right now called Second Half Certainties. And basically the whole thesis of this book is going to be that when we're young, we have a lot of certainties. I mean, we're just young. We're kids. Why do kids go into the service, charge the hill? You know what I mean? They don't think they can happen to. So when you're young, you have a lot of certainties. But as you go through life knocks all of a sudden you realize, well, that's not certain. That wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. So here's what happens at the beginning of our life. We have a lot of certainties. At 25, I bet I had 100 certainties. And now I have 13. But here's what's beautiful. The certainties that I have today, I'm more certain about than I've ever been before.
Love it.
Because they've been tested. They've been tested. And so, yes, I'm sorry. You got me on books now, and I'm writing 3 books right now at the same time.
We apologize. John's apologies accepted, I imagine.
Well, I'm writing a book right now also on how to get a return on failure. I love that.
You created another book just now.
Well, now you just gave me the 4th book. See, you're distracting me. I've got 3 books already, and Pat walks in and says, "Hey, John, here we go." No, it's beautiful.
You know what? Last week, someone asked me a question. They said, Pat, like in all the people that you've ever talked to, what are the people that have a huge amount of influence in life? What do they all have in common? Success. Your definition of success to start out with is usually what I find. People don't do it for the reasons most people do things in life. Most people are doing things for money or power. But most people that I've met that have been hugely successful, exceeded their own expectations, are people that actually do it because it's what they were put here to do. It's the gift.
Fact.
They've fallen in love with the gift that they do have.
Totally.
The other thing that you just did for us is you gave us this amazing humility, because no one would look at John Maxwell with any idea of there's flaws, but you just explained to us that you constantly do that to yourself. But that's also in common when I find madly successful people. They all are passionate about getting better, and they're comfortable enough with themselves to admit that they can get better. And it's really important, important.
It's huge.
Yeah. What else is in that little thing?
Well, I was I was moving on, but I'll give you the rest of the questions. But if I give you the questions, you'll never buy the book. Then
I'll tell you what, special audience here today.
Okay, for only you, because you are Pat's friend. That's the only reason. If you weren't Pat's friend, we would not be doing this. But then I start looking forward. All those other questions basically are backwards. And I love this question. Am I willing to pay the price again this year? Because here's the big miss. The big miss is people think when you're successful, you quit paying a price. They think, oh my gosh, I can hardly wait till I have so much money and I got this, and then all of a sudden I don't have to worry about anything. I don't know where that person has been thinking or living, but they're under a rock somewhere because I have to, and by the way, I have to ask myself the question, am I willing to pay the price again? Life's like a toll road. Those booths never stop. I mean, you just go up there and you pay again, and you go a little way and you pay again.
You know, it's interesting.
Just keep paying.
You find, and you already know this, and I to a much lesser extent know it, that there's this inverse relationship. Yeah. As you grow in influence in life, which is what everyone wants, when you grow in influence, your freedoms shrink.
Totally.
You just have less. So to your point, are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to have less freedom personally because there's something that's so compelling calling you to continue to do because its purpose is worthwhile to do it.
It's so true. It's so true. My expression for leaders is very simple. People say, I want to lead well. I said, it's no problem. Get over yourself. Just get over yourself. I mean, it's not about you. It isn't going to be about you. There's not a time when it's going to be about you. So get over yourself. And I tell people all the time, I said, you ought to laugh at yourself more because everyone else is. I watch people, you watch them and they're just like tight and they still are, they've never really got, and see, you have to get over yourself before you can give yourself. I've never known a giving, caring person that didn't have to go through that process of getting over themselves. It's not about me. And when I teach leaders, in fact, I ask leaders all the time, why do you really want to lead? I mean, when you think about it, leadership sucks. You know what I mean? I mean, it really.
It's another book.
Yeah,
we got another book now.
Yeah, it really. You think I'm on this program to help you? Has nothing to do with you at all. when I'm with Pat, he gives me leadership ideas and book ideas, and I come away.
I just got the greatest compliment of my life. John was going through our office, and he stopped at one of the quotes that we have on the wall.
It's a great quote.
Yeah, and he took a picture of it.
Yeah.
And I was, first of all, the idea that you stopped and took a picture of our building here is
It's your quote.
Deal. It's my quote.
I'm for everyone. I'm not for everything, but I'm still for everyone.
Yeah.
Pat Flood. I mean, I got that right there. Pat, listen to me. There's a day I'll write a book and have that in there, and I'll give you credit, and then you can buy this quote back. I really have the best life. I have the best life.
If you ever decide to get out of the leadership development influence business, you should get into sales training business, because that was really good.
Yeah. There's nothing better than to take a quote from you, and then someday you pay for it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I get the royalties. This is a good. That's
a good model.
Oh, I'm going through your office. I'm taking pictures, man. I'm here to get this book ready to go.
So I have a question for you. You know, all of us just listen to how you plan for the go forward. Do you have accountability partners in your life? And who are they?
Well, of course I do. Let me just say this. Everybody has to have an accountability partner. If I knew that someone was leading and they didn't have someone they were accountable to, I wouldn't follow them. Let me put it this way. The reason I have an accountability, somebody asked me the other day, said, well, why do you have an accountability partner? It's because I don't trust myself. And they kind of looked at me and said, wow, you don't trust yourself? I said, well, don't put any conclusions on it. I don't trust you either. I don't trust any of you. But I don't trust me, and the reason I don't trust me is I know me. And I do stupid things. I had a mentor one time gave me some of the greatest advice ever. He said, John, understand, you're only one step from stupid. And you know, sometimes I've been closer than a step. Sometimes
one choice.
One choice. And so yes, I do. I have accountability partners. And by the way, I think one of the responsibilities of leaders is to give people that are close to them, that know them well. I think there's something beautiful about the leader giving permission to the people to hold them accountable. Yeah. There's something beautiful about saying to you, Pat, you have a right at any time to speak into my life, or to ask me a question, or if there's something you don't understand, please, I won't be offended. Leaders talk about having an open door policy. I think you have to have an open ear policy. And I think you just have to be kind and listening to what people have to say. But I had an accountability partner. He passed away. But I gave him 5 questions to ask me every month. And we'd go out to lunch. And he'd ask me these 5 questions. And they were questions that were, that were between him and me, really would help keep me straight, do the right thing. But I love question number 5. This is so good. This is so good. And it's so good because it worked so well. Because he would ask me the first 4 questions. And then question number 5 is, did you lie about any of the previous questions? Isn't that good? And of course, I'm laughing like crazy. And there were probably a dozen times I'd say, yeah, Bill, I lied about number 2. You see, knowing that the question was going to be asked of me didn't keep me from totally lying, but it kept me from lying as much as I would have.
Well, that's the value of having an accountability partner, right?
That's my point.
Yeah, no, so we all need them. And again, it's humility, accepting that someone else loves you enough that they will be offered the opportunity to speak into your life when they
100% agree.
Yeah. So, by the way, I haven't lied about anything so far. Yeah. I've told the truth every bit.
Well, I haven't either, but the show's not over yet. Yeah.
That's right. So let's talk about choices, because every single individual makes literally hundreds and hundreds of choices a day. Some of them are really simple. And then there's those other choices where when people make them, sometimes they go, oh my God, what was I thinking? What was I doing, right? So choices, they ultimately wind up becoming our life story. Every single choice leads to a part of our story, and in cumulative, that's what actually happens. So
So true.
Everyone in the audience today wants really, again, best and rich. How do you process making choices? There's a process to everything that's a best
There is.
idea. And so tell me your process.
Well, first of all, John Wooden, I had him as a mentor the last 14 years of his life. And it was life-changing.
Wow.
Life-changing. And John Wooden taught me this. There is a choice you have to make in everything you do. So always remember that in the end, the choice you make makes you. And that was just powerful. And I just said, wow, Coach. And I memorized that quote, and I just really lived by it. And we are the sum total of our choices. What I am today is based upon the choices that I made. And I make my, I want to say a couple things about, first of all, choices. I make my choices based on my values. I think decision-making is quite easy if you know what your values are. Mm-hmm. I think decision-making is very difficult if you don't know what your values are. Ed Bastian, who's the CEO of Delta, he and I were playing golf right in the year of COVID, but maybe, I don't know, August of that year. And so we're talking about values and how that helps with decision-making and how that's your foundation. And the whole fact that if you know what your values are, decision-making is quite easy. If you don't know what your values are, decision-making gets very difficult. Choices are not easy at all. And he said, John, he said, what's interesting is he said, during COVID, people that didn't have values before COVID found it to be a very difficult time for them. Mm. But if you have values going into this incredible testing, trying time, again, it's an anchor. We've talked about it. And I know that's true with you. So first of all, my choices are made pretty much on what my values are. Now, because I'm a leader, timing has a lot to do with choices. That's not a value. And so there are other things, but basically, I think consistency comes from knowing who you are and what your values are, and then all your decision making makes sense to the people around you, because they say, "Well, that's John. That's who he is. That's what his values are." But here's what I think. I think decision-making is overrated, and I think decision managing is underrated. I've made hundreds of decisions that weren't good decisions. Not on purpose, but I mean,
Sure.
I just have a degree of stupid in me. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like a spiritual gift in my life. Okay. And if somebody would come to me and say, "Well, no, I've always made good choices," we know that they're delusional. But I mean, I've made a lot of choices that were the best choices. But what happens is when you find out, well, that was not a good choice, then what you do is you adjust it. You say, well, immediately. Now, here's what I think. I think it's the management of the choices and the decisions that create greatness in people. And because the choices can be done in a day, you can make a decision in a day, but then you have to manage that decision, Pat. And when I see people, they say, well, that decision made me, or that choice made me. I want to look up and say, no, that choice puts you on a path. But you manage that choice. The only way you stay on that road is you every day. You have to fight for your decisions. You have to manage those decisions. You have to understand that when the mood is no longer what the mood was when I made the decision, it still was a right decision, and I have to do it. And I think we spend too much time on choice making and not enough on choice managing. I mean, when you get married, I mean, of course everybody's happy on that day, yeah. Till death do us part and all that stuff happens. But then all of a sudden you go to life and all of a sudden you got a death or a difficulty. And then all of a sudden, it's not what I said, it's do I manage what I said? Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And I think in as much as we just stop there on choices, I want to just share my formula and then make a point about it as well. So mine is my faith is my values.
Sure.
And that is the starting point for me. Everything filters through that to start with. My life mission is serve others.
Good.
It gets there. Then it's data. And I don't always have the best data, but I know that there are other people that are a lot brighter than me that can help me get the best data and information. And then you get to a point where your instinct finally kicks in and some experience in the past. One of the things I find in common with people that do climb the mountain and get to be best like you is they think the way you just did. Not once did I hear you say that my choices are impacted by what other people's choices are. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people travel through life. I did what I did.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to do what I did because they did what they did. Yeah. And in the end, the one thing that is absolutely positively truth is that in the end, we still have choices to do whatever others do to us that hurt us, whatever. We still own our own choices. We don't have to modify our choices because someone else decides to make a poor choice in our life.
So true. So many times it's just convenient when we make a choice that wasn't a wise one to look for someone else to say, well, if you had to work with them, or if you don't understand, it's not what happens to me, it's what happens in me that really makes the difference. And that goes back, Pat, to those values that you're talking about. When I have those inward values, that helps me manage those choices in my life.
Yeah. You probably did write a book about choices, but you could write another one. You got a lot of work to do after
I wrote a book
meeting.
called The Choice Is Yours many years ago.
So we've talked a bit about leading ourselves and others. We've talked about setting goals and accountability. We've talked about choices. I want to shift because I usually do ask people, beyond becoming your best in life, which everybody wants to, I always ask people the question, do you want to become rich and really rich? And usually the audience, yes, they want to become rich and really rich.
They want to be rich, they're just a little slow. But
a little slow, right. They thought it was a trick question.
That's
they
right.
Thought it was a
they're
trick
waiting
question.
for the shoe to drop.
So the pathway based on what you've defined success and the way I have, the pathways through relationships. Because in the end, most important in our life, when you get to the second half of your life and at the end of your life, you'll realize that what you have really that mattered would have been the relationships, those that you impacted, those that loved you, and the deposits you were able to make into the lives of others that changed their lives in a way that made them better. The problem with relationships is they would be really easy if everybody in our life would just do what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
Right? I mean, if they would just say and do, it'd be easy, right?
Yeah,
but
if they would obey us, there would be no problem.
It's not like that. What is your best advice for the people in the audience here today, giving them a pathway or a roadmap to be rich, because you can't get rich without being great in relationship? In truth, if somebody asked me about John Maxwell, he's an amazing writer, gifted communicator, great speaker. I watched John do Promise Keepers here in Atlanta in 1994. It's the first time I was in a stadium that wasn't for a ball game.
Yeah.
And when
Packed
you got
out.
when you got on stage, I promise you, and this was before they had the retractable roof, but you made it rain. I can remember being there that day and listening to you communicate, and I was like, that God put him on the planet to do that. Mm-hmm. It impacted me such that I just reminded everybody here. But if somebody asked me, I'd say, John's great. Leadership's about relationships. John's great because everything he writes about is about having a relationship first with yourself and then with others in a way that's deep and rich, which we all need that. What's your roadmap? Tell us how to be great, the best in relationships.
Well, I think, again, I try to take everything and make it very simple. I'm a communicator, not an educator. An educator takes something simple and makes it complicated. I mean, they really do. I mean, if you're not confused, they're not happy. You know what I mean? Yeah. I have 3 degrees, but it's just a fact. I mean, you can read a college book. Every sentence is a paragraph. I mean, you got it. You're halfway through the sentence. You got to go back to the top to remember what the first part said, so you can catch the second part. I mean, they take things simple, make it complicated. But I'm a communicator, which means I take things complicated and I make it simple. It's very simple. The best advice I give anybody on relationships is that you are either a plus or a minus in people's lives. That's a fact. In other words, you are every day either intentionally adding value to people so that when people see you walk into the room and they say, oh my gosh, Pat's here, and their face lights up. Why does their face light up when you're there because, Pat, you're going to add value to them. You're going to pour into them. You're going to give more than you receive. You're a plus. You're a plus. You're a plus intentionally in your life. And your goal is to add value to people. You're a plus person. But to be a plus person, you have to be intentional because we're naturally selfish. Naturally, what's natural for John Maxwell is to ask, what good thing's going to happen to me today? Who's going to do something for me? I wonder if something's going to really fall my way. We're all naturally selfish. So, because we're all naturally selfish, we're all naturally a minus. Because what's really natural for me is to wait on for you to do something for me. And boy, if you smile, well, I may smile back. And boy, I wonder if maybe you'll buy lunch. And so people that are minuses aren't intentionally minus. I don't think somebody gets up and says, boy, I hope people can hate me today. You know what I mean? I hope I could, make people cry. I think they just are in a selfish rut of which they expect people to take care of them instead of initiating and being and so what you have to do is, the reason intentionality is so important, I have a statement, you've heard me say this before, everything worthwhile is uphill. Yeah. Well, you have to be intentional to climb that hill. No one accidentally climbed the hill. I mean, no one got to the top and somebody said, what happened? You said, I had no idea. Oh my gosh, I'm here. Oh, happy day. No, we intentionally do that. So to be a plus in people's life, here's a great statement. I judge the success of my day by the seeds I sow, not by the harvest I reap.
Wow.
And what we have to understand is harvesting, if you sow seeds, is automatic. But sowing seeds is not automatic. So if I'm waiting for somebody to make my day, I'm going to a field that hasn't been sown. But if I just keep sowing, it's only a matter of time till all the harvesting happens in your life. And by the way, I think if you're consistent and you do this for a long time, I've been doing leadership for 50 plus years now. And now the harvesting is just compounded. Consistency compounds. It's ridiculous what's happening now. I can't even believe it myself. In fact, I sometimes want to check myself into the hospital and say, I'm an imposter. Where's the other John Maxwell that did all these things? And they told me the other day that I've written more leadership material than any man that's ever lived in the history of the world. And I thought, oh crap, I had no idea. I had no idea. But you just keep sowing. You just keep sowing. And one day I was with Bob Taylor Guitars. Mm-hmm. Bob's a good friend of mine. We were out in San Diego. And so they were doing a Q&A, question and answer with him. And they said, well, Bobby, you get it because he's the number one guitar manufacturer in the world. And it's just amazing what he does. And they said, okay, you go get these awards and, all this stuff, all the awards, rewards, recognition, all this stuff. And they said, how does that make you feel? He said, well, it makes me feel very grateful. And they looked at me and said, and then I go back and make another guitar. See, that's where the miss is. We somehow think that we just need to stay on this recognition, reward mountain. And Bob says, really, I can hardly wait to get on. Thank you for the award. By the way, I just want to bring this people's attention. Now, this is you, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought. Superman. This is me. I look like a worn-out preacher, don't I? Look at Superman, worn out. Even Ike Reichert, he's at least got his arms out, enthusiastic. And this is your dad, isn't it?
It's my dad. We won the lottery, both of us.
Yeah, we both won the lottery there. But yeah. I have a goal someday of coming on your program, and I have like a, how's that look? Don't you think? I think, that's a possibility. We'll put Ike back over there. But I think really just determining to be a plus. And so every day I do 5 things. Every day I value people. Every day I think of ways to add value to people. Every day I look for ways to add value to people. By the way, if you are thinking of ways to add value to people, you will find ways to add value. It's just, not everybody sees, perspective. is huge. How we view things is how we do things. And so when you talk about perspective, this world, two people can be in the same room and live in two totally different worlds. And both of them be true. Both of them be very, very true. And so every day I value people. And that's, if you will only be a plus in people's life relationally if you value people. The moment I don't value you, why should I serve, give, help, lift? Why would I do those things? So every day I value people, think of ways to add value to people, look for ways to add value to people, do things that add value to people. And then number 5, encourage others to add value to people. So relationships all about, do you want to be a plus or do you want to be a minus? And if you want to be a minus, you don't have to do anything. Just be who you naturally are, selfish. I had a person the other day come up to me, Pat, and they said, I'm not selfish. And I just looked at this lady, I thought, oh my gosh. She really believed that she wasn't selfish. We're all selfish. I have to fight selfishness all the time.
It's our nature.
It's who I am. I was born, I tell people all the time, I was born a robber. And if you don't believe me, look at a little toddler with toys. You know what I'm saying? They'll take theirs, they'll take yours, they'll take everyone's. You know what I mean? If you leave it there, it's theirs. You know what I mean? If they can, they're stronger. They take it. We're naturally selfish. And so I got to thinking about this lady. She wasn't selfish. I thought, well, think about it for a moment. Think about it. If somebody takes if you're in you got some of your friends and you take a group picture. When they show you the picture, just let me ask you a question. When you see that picture with you and your friend, who is the first person you look for in that picture? We look for ourselves. There's 7, but we're not looking at 6. We're looking for the one. And by the way, if it's a good picture, we say, oh my gosh, good picture, send that to me. Yeah, I love that. And if it's not good, what do? You
Delete
say,
it.
Do it again, come on. That's a terrible picture. Everybody else looked good but you. But we're just naturally self. So to be a plus relationally in life is not easy. It's just not easy. There's the difference between dating and marriage is you're intentional in dating. And when you get married, if you aren't careful, you shift that and say, okay, what are you going to do for me now? Mm. And how many times that we see, marriages mess up just because all of a sudden that perspective went from a plus to a minus.
You just gave every single person here the roadmap to get rich in life. Yeah. And actually, the people that I've met that have become truly rich, including harvest rich, usually aren't all that brilliant after all, except for maybe yourself. They're just living as plus to everyone else in life.
So
they're
true.
adding something in everyone else's life, and the manifestation of all that comes back in a harvest that really does make you rich no matter what your financial status is. But some of the simplest people I've ever met have become rich simply because they've been focusing on being net adds to every single person in their life. And it isn't natural, but it is best. My thinking about this was informed in large part by an event that happened early in my life with my dad, where I got my heart broken because his heart was broken, losing his child and then losing my mom. But I watched him serve net positive everyone, even with the pain of my mother having left after he lost his son too, and watched him make sacrifice net positive for not only just me and my brothers, but everybody he was in business with in the community, serving. It was amazing. And I also learned this other lesson. I want to ask you about it here now. But I learned from him, because he told me the night my mom left, forgive your mom. You need to forgive your mom. And what I've found is that people limit their upside because they get hurt and someone hurts them and they just don't ever forgive the other person, or maybe they don't forgive the person in the mirror. Is it possible really to, Christian or not, right? Because forgiveness is like a Christian thing, but it so transcends that.
Totally.
Is it possible to be in a great, meaningful, long-term relationship if you don't learn to forgive?
Oh, I don't think any relationship can last without forgiveness in it. I mean, Mark, let me tell you the good news. We've been married 53 years. Can I tell you the bad news? We've forgiven each other a couple thousand times each.
Mm.
Because how many times have I had looked there and said, I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Me too.
Can you forgive me? I'm sorry. Okay, I got it. I missed it. And remember I told you about the book I'm writing on, Second Half Certainties?
Mm-hmm.
One of my 13 certainties is everyone needs to be forgiven. So forgive everyone.
I love it.
And I truly, I need to be forgiven. I mean, there have been so many times I've had to have somebody, I just have needed somebody to say, John, it's okay. It's okay. You're forgiven. I needed it. And I remember how I felt when they did forgive me, and how freeing it was, and how that load of heaviness was lifted off of me. And so, and when people say, well, I hear people say, forgive and forget. I don't think that's realistic. So let's not, forgive and forget. It's like, forgot that your mother left. She's not there. I think, in fact, I like the phrase, forgive and remember.
I love it. Yeah.
You know what I remember? I remember I made a choice to forgive you, even though I got hurt. And I call it the high road life. What was it? Martin Luther King had a great quote. He said, forgiveness is not an occasional act. It's a continual effort. And I believe that to be really true. I think high road is, when you travel the high road, first of all, very few people travel. And by the way, it's a toll road. And so there's a price that you pay on it. But when you travel the high road, you don't keep score. At 51, I had a heart attack. And I remember for about 2 hours, I had a hard time getting it stopped. And we were at a Christmas party down at where the Braves used to play. It was called Turner Field. And our companies were there, and I had a heart attack. In fact, it was late in the evening, and we were about to finish the party, and I was dancing with one of our people, and she said, John, your neck is wet and cold. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack, lay down. So it's a long story. It ended up in Grady. You don't want to go to Grady if you have a heart attack. That's for gunshot wounds. And, there's just, and they didn't have a heart attack.
But you do have a gun.
Yeah. But you haven't forgotten at all, Patrick. You have not forgotten. But I can remember for a couple. In fact, my children were there, and I had 5 doctors around me after a while. They couldn't stop it, and he told my wife, Mark, said, you can let the kids come in. And so we were very, we had a couple hours of, would I make it or not? I can tell you what I'll never forget about that experience is if they would have brought a phone in and said, you can call anybody. I wouldn't have anybody to call to say, wait a minute, can you forgive me? Mm. Now, please, we got to make sure I keep this in context. I've done a lot of things that needed to be forgiven. So it's not like I've lived a perfect life, but I tell people, quit holding grudges. But you know what? While you're holding that grudge and nursing it and having a pity poor me party, they're out dancing. And I look at people and say, do you not understand? So I say, don't take baggage with you. Travel light, and I've lost millions of dollars from people that didn't do the right thing. But it's all right. You know what I mean? I'm not going to carry that. I have people who I'm sure, because I'm a leader and I've made decisions some people don't like, I'm sure I have people who don't like me, but I don't know who they are because I like everybody. Mm-hmm. Me too. And so I think it's a choice. So I remember, but I also remember that I made a choice to forgive. And I think it's the only way to live. I think if you do not have a forgiving heart, I think that you're going to be bogged down real quick with emotional issues. And we teach values in countries, as you know, for transformation. And one of the values we teach is forgiveness. Wow. And what we find is, of all of the values, forgiveness is the most life-changing of all values. Almost always around a round table, there's somebody saying, oh my gosh, I've got to go forgive somebody. And so I think it's a life-changing value.
Most times people will want to tell you their story because they think their story is different and therefore not worthy of someone's of forgiving someone else. And I think what you just finished in teaching us, net positive, if you're going to be really rich in relationship, you're going to wind up accepting other people's flaws, and you're going to wind up having to forgive them. And I even take it a step further. I always think that when people hurt people.
Yeah, they do.
And
Hurting
what I
people hurt
want to know is in those cases, you know, you don't get credit as a leader for coaching great players. They're great players. You get credit when you can take a player that people don't see as a great player and net positive in their life, and turn them into something no one ever believed, including themselves, that it could have ever become. So
very, very true.
You've been amazing today. You always are. I get something every time that we've ever invested together. Thank you so much for really being a net positive to so many millions of people around the world.
Thank you for
and thanks for being here today. Thanks for being part of our leadership series this year, John.
Yeah,
God bless you, my friend.
Pat, thank you. I love being with you. I love what you do in your leadership, and you're a great leader. The only thing that's better than your leadership is you're just a great person. And to be able to be with you on these programs and hopefully help all the people.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what we're here for.
Let's give it up for John.
Thank you. Thank you.